The cafe was packed when Sarah walked in, her left hand held high so everyone could see the ring, my grandmother's ring. She took the seat across from me, a sneer on her perfect lips. "Thank you for coming to see me, Emma," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She held up her hand so that the antique diamond sparkled in the light. "Oh, this old thing. It's technically mine now, along with the house and the trust fund, since Michael helped me fight over the will," and her smile got even wider. I remembered my last conversation with Grandma Rose, just a few days before she died. We were in her study, surrounded by her beloved books and antiques, and she handed me an old leather journal and told me to keep it safe. And she whispered, her voice faint but urgent, "Everything you want to know is not here. Promise me you'll wait until it's the right time to tell you." And I promised her I'd keep it, and put the journal away, and didn't read it. And now, as I watch Sarah swarm the stolen inheritance, I wonder if this is the moment Grandma has been waiting for. You know what's funny? Sarah happily continues to stir her drink. It's easy to convince a lawyer that you're mentally unstable. "Why did you call me here, Sarah?" I kept my voice steady, remembering the weight of my grandmother's diary in my bag. She was just gloating. "Oh no, dear sister," she leaned forward and lowered her voice. "I want to make a deal with you. You can give up any claim to the estate, and I'll give you a small allowance every month, enough to keep you off the streets." She sat back down, obviously satisfied with herself. "After all, we are family." When I finally opened those weathered pages, "You're right," I said, reaching for my bag. "We're family. There's something you should know about Grandma's real estate." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? We've been through all the paperwork. Everything's in my name." Now I pulled out the diary. Its leather cover was worn and tattered, but not everything you know. Grandma kept a second set of books. Every transaction, every property, every investment. It's all documented here, including some interesting transfers just before she died. "You're lying." Sarah broke off, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "The lawyers found out everything, didn't they?" I slid a stack of papers across the table. I'd photocopied them from the most important pages of the diary because, according to these documents, Grandma's most valuable asset had been transferred 2 weeks before her death to a separate trust that required both sisters to agree to any distribution of funds. She whispered, but her hands were shaking. "Michael checked everything," he said. "Michael doesn't know about this," I interjected. "Neither does the lawyer. Grandmother has made sure of this. She knows how you two operate. She's just waiting to see how far you'll go. You're bluffing," Sarah said, but her voice had lost its edge. These could be forgeries. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed a number I remembered. "Why don't we ask Mr. Chin?" I ended the call before it connected, enjoying the flash of dawning realization in her eyes. "Oh, now you want to talk. You conspired with my ex-husband to steal my inheritance, to paint me as mentally unstable. You used my trust in you against me. What do you want?" Sarah asked questions that were more like pleas than demands. When he realized that marrying you wouldn't give him access to his grandmother's, he opens a drawer and pulls out a thick folder. Everything of real value is in there. Investment portfolios, commercial real estate, art collections are all in here, protecting what your sister and Michael stole through the courts, which are basically empty shells. I thought of Sarah's smugness in the cafe, of Michael's confident testimony, painting me as an unstable person who didn't know they'd been empty-handed all along. And without Mr. Chen's confirmation, a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, now that they'd shown their true colors, we could move on to the rest of the Ross plan. Once they try to access the account, the quarterly statements will be mailed out next week. Mr. Money spread his hands. "Well, let's just..." Against my better judgment, I took Emma's call. It was Michael's mother, Margaret. "Please, we need to talk." Sarah was hysterical. Michael wouldn't tell me what was going on, and I closed my eyes, recalling Margaret testifying against me at the hearing, claiming that she'd known all along that there was something wrong with the girl. "And I'm sure they'll tell you how they conspired to steal my inheritance. But what about the money? They've already spent quite a bit of it. I think about the engagement party they're planning at the country club where Michael and I were married 6 years ago. and I find it ironic. You know what's funny, Margaret? When Michael and I were married, you told me that family was everything, that loyalty and honesty were the foundation of a long-lasting relationship. And when you found out how your son and my sister betrayed those values, what would you have said? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What do you mean? I heard her inhale sharply. No, she whispered. They won't. They already did. I said simply, now they need to know that actions have consequences. Everything in the study is exactly as Grandma left it, her old glasses still on the desk next to a half-done crossword puzzle. My phone rang again. It was a text from Mr. Chin's quarterly statement wanting to be contacted within 24 hours. I smiled and sat down in my grandmother's favorite armchair. The wait couldn't be much longer. Just then I heard a car screeching to a halt outside. Footsteps picking their way up the front steps, followed by the sound of someone tapping on the door. Emma Sarah's voice was shrill and panicked. I panicked. Open the door right now. We need to talk. I stayed where I was and listened, Michael's voice joining hers. The account was empty. He said nothing was there. How could this be? Nothing was there. I shouted through the door, loud enough for them to hear it. It was never even open. The knocking paused for a moment. It was quiet for a moment, and then there was Sarah's voice again, even quieter now. What are you talking about? Maybe you should ask your fiancé about due diligence, I replied, checking the true value of what you think you're stealing before spending money you don't have. There was another silence, followed by hurried whispers, and I could imagine them out there, their perfect world crumbling around them. I stood up and walked to the front door, but didn't open it, like we discussed when you slept with my sister, or like we discussed when you lied about my mental health in court. Too bad, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Within hours of them realizing the account was empty, Sarah and Michael's carefully constructed world began to crumble. My phone rang with a message from Mr. Money. The bank was requesting an immediate meeting regarding the recent expenditures. Should I arrange it? Yes, I replied to him and made sure that all relevant parties were present. Sarah and Michael were already there along with their attorneys and Margaret as I entered. They all looked up with a mixture of anger, fear, and despair on their faces. Now that everyone was there, the bank manager began to say we need to discuss the irregular activity on the accounts. Sarah's attorney leaned forward. My client obtained these accounts by court order. Everything was legal. I interrupted the court order to put the grandmother's diary on the table, doctored photographs, false testimonies, elaborate character assassinations. The only Chen concluded they used to make the loans, but the money we spent was essentially a credit extended by the bank based on an asset that you didn't actually control, the bank manager finished, which means that these loans are now in default. Sarah neatly manicured fingernails dug into the conference table because she was jealous that Michael chose mess. She couldn't take it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her behind the designer clothes and expensive jewelry. I saw what my grandmother must have seen, a desperate woman. This was Grandma's real will, her real. Intention before she put everything of value in a trust fund with specific conditions. I looked straight at Sarah. She knew you wanted to take it all. She wanted to see what you would do, how far you would go. Now, what is Michael asking you to do? You're going to take it all and leave us with nothing. No, I'm going to do what Grandma wanted. If we don't sign, the bank will sue you for fraud and all the evidence of your... Chen put away the papers and nodded to me. Sarah's hand instinctively covered the diamond, but it belonged to Grandma. It was never yours. You can't take it away. Slowly, reluctantly, she took it off and put it on the table. I picked it up and felt its familiar. The weight of it. Grandmother used to tell me that this ring was about more than just value. I said and turned it over to me. It's about the legacy of who you choose to be. I left them in the conference room. Their world changed forever. The ride home was quiet, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the city. Sitting in her favorite chair, I slipped the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly, just like she said it would. Beside the unfinished crossword puzzle on her desk, I found an envelope I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a note in her familiar handwriting. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then it's all as I suspected. True wealth is not about what you have, but what kind of person you choose to become. It's what you choose to become. You've proved yourself worthy not only of my legacy, but of my heritage.